Ryan limbering up like he's getting ready to run a race.
I pretend to be happy.
Hello, nerds, and welcome. We are crossing the Nerdverse, bringing you yet another rift in the Nerdverse, and yet again another snappy one-liner from Ryan to open the show. Who's really dialing it in tonight? My name is Travis. I'm joined as always by Eric and Ryan, and we are going to be talking about the Star Wars Celebration 2023. Eric, lead us off.
All right, so it's been a really wild couple of days trying to dissect all the information, and thankfully there were some people in with cell phones and stuff that took videos so you could kind of see the different trailers and stuff they didn't release yet to the public that I know of for certain things. I know Ahsoka's came out, but they had a couple different things. I think Skeleton Crew, I don't know if they released theirs yet. But yeah, so there was some information that was put out, and trying to just organize it all with my massive ADHD brain, really difficult. But the biggest thing I want to start with is they did put out the eras for sure. And the only reason that it plays a big part right now is just because of all the movies and shows that are coming out. So, of course, you have the Old Republic, started all. That's KOTOR, stuff like that. Then you got the High Republic, which is the show Acolyte's going to take place in that time frame. Then you got Fall of the Jedi, which is the prequels all took place during Clone Wars, stuff like that. Then it's Rise of the Empire. That's your Andor and the Obi-Wan TV shows, kind of where you get to see the Empire taking charge. Age of Rebellion, that's your originals trilogy, and anything that happened during that time. And then after that's your New Republic. So that's when your Mandalorian and stuff's going to be taking place. I can't remember where they said Ahsoka fits into it. I know Skeleton Crew is going to be an earlier time too, because there's a bunch of kid Jedis in it. And then Rise of the First Order, that's when the Force Awakens starts. There's nothing after that for eras, so one thing I found interesting with that is they have released information that they're going to be doing movies after that. So I'm curious if they're waiting to release the new era name, if they haven't come up with one or anything like that. So I did find that kind of interesting, the way they broke that down.
I'm
Yeah,
sure,
we got a
I'm sure
lot.
they'll have something.
Yeah, we got a
far as
lot
the
of
name
stuff
goes.
coming down the pipe. The Star Wars Celebration has really unloaded just an epic amount of information on us. So as far as everything's going, what seems to have caught y'all's attention? What are you looking forward to the most? What snags you?
The Rey, because they're going to do it, in my opinion, the correct way. So when you made the new trilogy, the biggest disappointment to me was there was no explanation in the movies about what happened to Luke's school. All you got was Ben flipped out, killed everything. That was the whole thing. There's no explanation of how he was capable of taking out however many Jedi were there, which we have no idea about. If you go on websites and stuff, there's theories that there's anywhere from 10 to 30 Jedi there. So we have no idea as to how he did that. He just magically woke up and just lit everything on fire and no one noticed. I mean, they're all Force attuned, even younglings would be. So they would sense what happened. I mean, supposedly Ben, he would have spiked in the Force when he woke up and Luke was going to kill him. So there's just so many loose ends with how that particular part went down. I'm glad to see that it sounds like the next trilogy is going to be either when she's has it set up and it's new, or she's going to be setting it up. So, sorry about that.
I'm most excited about anything that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are going to be involved in. Both of which some of my favorite writers and directors for any Star Wars stuff. I know both of those gentlemen are extremely passionate about what they do, which is always nice to see that level of care put into things. As far as the Rey, coming back for, a trilogy on her building the school and all that fun stuff. I'm excited to see it. I'm always okay with more Star Wars stuff, so having a new set of movies would be good. I am really excited about some of their earlier movies because I believe, let me get the director's name. That way I don't mess this up. Oh, where did it go? I just had the article up, and of course, I scrolled too far past it.
Are you talking about like the early stuff?
James Mangold.
Yes.
It's going to go back to the Dawn of the Jedi at the very beginning. Super excited for that one. I've liked the work he's done as a director, so definitely excited to see what he does with Star Wars. I'll be honest, I'm not familiar with most of the shows besides Andor and, of course, The Mandalorian, two of my favorite Star Wars TV shows that have came out. Biggest disappointment for me was no announcement for Obi-Wan 2.
But she did say that it did so well, like she notices it, like it's not out of the realm of possibility. That's like the original, like when I think we mentioned it before in another episode, how the 3 movies, the next trilogy that was canceled, and some other stuff like Rogue Squadron, supposedly they're not really canceled. They're just kind of shifted now for this more exciting new stuff that they've got planned, which I think is smart because they're grabbing some rather interesting directors at the right time, like Mangold, who did Old Man Logan. Well, Logan, sorry. I always call it Old Man because I read the books.
Yeah, the comic arc Old Man Logan was fantastic. That movie, absolutely fantastic. So yeah, like I said, excited to see Mangold, excited to see Dave Filoni.
The only thing with the Dave one that I'm just trying to see when that even might start filming, because if that's supposed to be the end of Mandalorian. Now, not the end of the other shows that are going to tie into it, of course, just the Mandalorian. I don't know when they'd even start filming it. That's going to be interesting to me. It is going to be cool to actually see all these shows come together that are around the same time, like Book of Fett and Ahsoka and stuff, to make a movie. That's going to be kind of wild. And since they're so good with the shows, by then we'll probably be watching 4-hour movies in the theaters. Because what's Avatar right now, like 3?
3 hours and something like 18 minutes. Yeah.
Too long.
Yeah, so by the time they make this, probably about a 4-hour movie.
I don't think they'll end up doing that. I do think they will end up either doing it kind of like they did Kenobi, because that's effectively why we keep getting these short-running series, right? You look at Kenobi, it's not a television show. It's a movie that they cut into smaller pieces. And it kind of falls into that old joke, I have so many people that I know that if they get off work, watching a 2-hour movie just sounds exhausting and they won't do it. Binge watching 6 hours of a television show, however, totally fine. And so if they do something like that, they'll end up doing it in a series like that.
I feel like people metabolize a lot of the, of course you still want to have your blockbuster movies, right? Everybody enjoys going to the movies. At least most people I know enjoy going to the movies still. So you want those blockbusters occasionally. I think miniseries, just to pull back a term from the days of syndicated television when that was real big. Miniseries have always been a hit. You release them in an episode at a time, and then eventually down the line you run all those episodes in a row as like a made for TV movie, which is exactly what things like Kenobi are. It's put out into bite-sized chunks. It's easier to metabolize. You can either watch them a week, every whatever day they release on during the week, or you can wait for the whole series to come out and then binge watch it all at once, whichever you prefer. So I do kind of miss the days when they would release the entire series at once in case I wanted to sit down and binge watch the whole thing on release day. I miss that. I'm not saying that I would turn into a potato when my favorite shows would get released that way, but I could be confused for a bag of chips.
It's kind of funny when you look at it. We used to have to wait for shows, and then they started putting shows all at once, and now we're back to waiting for shows that are really good. You still get the other shows that'll release whole seasons at a time, the not so popular ones, but the really good ones, like The Mandalorian, or any of the Star Wars, Obi-Wan, stuff like that, they still do their weekly releases on much shorter time frames, though. They like 8-9 episodes instead of 20.
Right.
But it's interesting to see that that's made a comeback and is now becoming more common with popular shows.
You know, I actually just had a conversation about that, and it was about The Mandalorian, where because you're right, for a couple of years they were doing that, where they would drop an entire series all at once. You could sit down, you could invite all your friends over and make a day of it, turn it into a binge watching party where you're sitting in a couch covered in popcorn and everybody's super hyped about it. But some television shows just haven't done that. And Mandalorian's one of my absolute favorite television shows. It's done an amazing job. And I know that fans right now are very upset about the way certain things are going. And we're not going to do any kind of spoilers on it, but fans are getting uppity about it. And the only complaint that I have is I have to wait till every Wednesday to be able to watch it. And I wish they would go to the binging method. And it really feels like it's just a holdover of tradition in a lot of cases. Now, I'm not an expert with how these things are made or the process of it or the editing process. Maybe it's a time issue. It could be all kinds of different stuff. But me personally, I'm a binge watcher. I'd love to be able to sit down and watch the whole thing on a Sunday afternoon. It would be wonderful.
Speaking of not being patient, I did notice that Kathleen Kennedy did announce that most of these films that they talked about during the Star Wars Celebration are pretty far along as far as development goes, which leads me to believe that we're close to finalizing a script and not necessarily recording scenes just yet, unless it's a select few here and there, because I know they did drop some trailers. With films like that, saying you're far along on development can literally mean anything. It could be it's on the editing room floor and we're going to see it very soon, or it's we're about to finalize the script, or we're about a third of the way writing the script and then we're going to go through 1,000 edits. So really a broad blanket statement to say that they're pretty far along in development. So hopefully we'll get some concrete release dates coming out soon.
Oh, yeah. Well, and on the subject of 1,000 different edits, I'm personally really excited about The Accolyte. It's getting a lot of hype right now. They revealed a lot of details and had a teaser at the Star Wars Celebration for it. It's one that I'm personally very, very hype about. It features a lot of some of my favorite characters, and is in the High Republic era, which is a fantastic era for any of our listeners that read the comic book series. For those of you that don't, it's wonderful, and you should absolutely check it out. And I think The Acolyte's going to really open a lot of doors for some interesting storytelling in the Star Wars universe. It makes me feel ambitious because I would like to see Dr. Aphra get some screen time personally. But we did get some casting roles. We know that Rebecca Henderson is going to be playing Vernestra Rowe from the High Republic era in The Acolyte, which I'm very, very excited about. And I mean, there's a lot of, I could go on and on about The Acolyte. I'm also surprisingly very excited about the Ahsoka series. Now, Ahsoka herself, fantastic character, and I had a lot of fun with her in the Clone Wars, but I wasn't expecting to be as hype about her upcoming works as I actually am.
For those of you that don't want any spoilers and want to be completely surprised by casting decisions, please skip forward or be prepared for spoilers because Lars Mikkelsen has been cast as Grand Admiral Thrawn. He was the Thrawn, I should say. I don't know why it came out Thrawn. He did the voice acting for Star Wars Rebels, same character. Excited to see him play the live action version. He's a fantastic actor. Definitely going to bring a lot of depth to that guy in a live action version for Ahsoka. So super hyped about that one.
Oh, absolutely. I actually didn't learn that Lars Mikkelsen was going to be reprising his role in the live action version until we sat down to record tonight. And I'm over the moon about that. Lars Mikkelsen is fantastic. He's got the right look. He already has the voice, obviously. I think he's going to absolutely crush it. I am so excited to see him in the Ahsoka workup. And there's actually a lot of announcements in Ahsoka. Again, because of spoilers, we won't be covering everything. But there are a few things I'm really excited about. A lot of characters that are rumored to be making a cameo or a distinct appearance in Ahsoka that I'm very excited about. Especially to see them in live action form. So...
Yeah,
absolutely.
Mary Elizabeth Winstead will be be playing Harrison Dula. I forget the name of the actress. It's going to be Sabine Wren, but we're going to get to see some live action versions of them. Spoiler alert again. There's been a couple of Rebels characters already pop up in the Mandalorian TV show. If you guys aren't caught up on that, keep an eye out for them coming forward. So.
Well, sorry, guys. It appears like we might be having some technical problems with Travis coming through. We're going to give him a second to see if we can get him back in here. In the meantime, I believe what he was trying to tell us about was a lot of the casting decisions that were made for the Ahsoka show. Most notably was they cast Sabine Wren, and I'm trying to find the actress's name right now. Of course, Rosario Dawson is going to be reprising Ahsoka. Absolutely fantastic. Loved the work she's done so far.
And then
as far
Sabine
as
is going to be Natasha Bordizzo. If I said that correctly,
we're supposed to pronounce that. We're just three random guys and fans.
And then Chopper's back, of course, with his beeps
gotta love
and stuff.
Chopper.
I think that was a smart move by the Ahsoka show. Like, she has a lot of a depth as a character, but to add, especially Sabine, I wasn't expecting Hera and Chopper's much. I knew Sabine would be in because they've been saying the whole time Thrawn's coming back, and also they were going to bring back Ezra. So because of that,
absolutely.
you knew that Sabine was going to be in it. But it is exciting to see Hera and Chopper also coming back in. It's going to give a lot to the show. It already has a super solid fan base because of that too. So they know they don't have to grab real hard to get a bunch of views for it. So that makes it even more exciting.
Well, and that's kind of what I was building up to, is the fact that Ahsoka's always been a really cool character, but not one that resonated with me personally. And so I wasn't paying very close attention to her show. But now that they've brought in effectively the entire storyline from the Rebels animated series, I am all about it now. And there's actually some really interesting trivia. So with the actress that they have cast as Hera, apparently, and I don't recognize her for much. I might have to bring up her IMDb page here in a minute. But it's Ewan McGregor's wife that they brought in to play Hera, which I'm really
I did not know that.
Yeah. Now, honestly, the one I'm most excited about is Lars Mikkelsen coming back as Grand Admiral Thrawn. He's been one of my favorite characters in Star Wars since his books came out, however long ago that was. And to see the Ahsoka show building up to a major Thrawn arc, which, like you said, we kind of knew was coming. It's not even been hinted at. It's been heavy-handedly smacked at.
Yes.
But to see Thrawn's story coming back in and to be getting treated with respect and love that you can only see from some of these writers and directors, I'm ecstatic about it. And I'm not gonna lie, the first thing I'm gonna do when we're done recording tonight is to go watch the teaser trailer they released for Ahsoka, because I want to see how everything's going, what's going on. I know the stills that we have from the Star Wars Celebration are wonderful. They look perfect. And so I'm very, very happy.
They really did go like all out with everything with Star Wars. It was really nice to see. And he's coming back.
Oh, I think we might have Travis back. We sure do. Welcome back, Travis.
I just needed to take a quick break. That's why I promise I wasn't experiencing internet problems. I was just sick of you guys. Had to walk away for a minute.
It makes sense. You got to miss our whole exit of the Ahsoka stuff, so that was good. It's good timing.
I was apparently done with that anyway. It's not that I was super excited for that show at all. So,
well, and speaking of taking a break and walking away, the next big one that I think we should talk about is The Bad Batch. Either of you guys watch Bad Batch?
Not a single episode.
I have not watched the new season yet, but I watched the first season. It was really interesting. A nice take on some characters that I didn't kind of expect. I had heard a little bit about Bad Batch, but to see it play out and stuff like that was really interesting.
I haven't even finished Clone Wars.
Oh, bro. Okay, so ignoring the fact that Travis is here for just a minute, Bad Batch was one of the largest surprises I had in Star Wars for a long time, because when they started talking about it, the way they portrayed it was kind of like oh, it's going to be Star Wars, but the X-Men. You have these genetically modified soldiers, and that kind of stuff.
I'm kind of worried now that you guys kicked me and this wasn't an internet problem, that you guys just threw me out of the room.
I mean,
but I will say this for anybody who hasn't given Bad Batch a shot, it does have the premise of how to do spoiler free. It has the premise of a squad of clone soldiers that came out a little messed up from the cloning process, and it's about their story, and that's why it's called the Bad Batch. It's their little squad of people. And it does not watch like X-Men in the Star Wars universe. It is a very adult, very mature take on what happened at the end of the, I don't know what to call it, the Separatist War, the Rise of the Empire. And to take a look at that from effectively the ground floor, right? It's from the dirt soldiers and what it was like for them when all this went down. It's probably one of the best pieces of Star Wars storytelling that I've watched recently. I highly recommend it to everybody. We just finished season 2. There is, and here's the kind of bittersweet good news, bad news moment. We do have season 3 coming, but it's going to wrap the story. It's going to be the last one. And so we're going to have 3 total seasons of Bad Batch. I'm hoping that it gets treated same as everything else seems to be doing in Star Wars right now with Ahsoka, that their story continues into what it impacted and how it develops into other shows. But get caught up on Bad Batch, season 1 and season 2. We got season 3 coming, and it's going to be the finale season. So
I'm okay with building up stories to a conclusion. Like, I like having, with series that I love, not saying that Bad Batch is one that I've loved because I haven't watched a single episode, but it's one of those things that's nice to know that they had a plan moving forward instead of those ones that drag on for like 22 seasons and they're like, shit, I have no idea how to end this. It's nice to see that there was like a plan in place, or they've put a plan in place to where this kind of gets wrapped up instead of just left on a hanger. Because that's also one that drives me nuts, is when they do like a cliffhanger ending for a season and they're like, well, we're not ever coming back. I'm like,
mm-hmm. Well, and so I get mixed feelings about it because it's always bittersweet, right? And so I know we're talking about Star Wars this episode, but to use an example, one of my girls really loves a show called Gravity Falls. It's an animated show. It's on Disney. I can't stop watching this show. It's amazing. And it's literally about these 2 kids' wild summer that they spent with their like great uncle. But this show was done with such finesse that it's difficult for me to believe that it's not impossibly popular. They have a concise and complete story. They told what they wanted to do, and then it was done, just like Travis was saying. And I constantly find myself in awe of how amazing it was, and sad that I don't have more to watch.
But it's nice to see the stories end, though.
But like, it's fine.
Hey, make fun of me all you want to. This is a fantastic cartoon, and I'm not ashamed of liking it. So
Rubble left the Paw Patrol. He lives in his own city now. I'm not joking. Rubble's got his own crew. He does. He's his own city now. Rubble is not Paw Patrol affiliated. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Already released.
I would like to clarify that I have never watched a single episode of Paw Patrol, but I do have a lot of friends who are parents at this stage in their life, so definitely went for the low-hanging fruit on that joke.
Yeah. The nice thing with Star Wars, Disney's doing it right. Like, all these series sort of have plans, which is nice to see because of how bad they planned the last trilogy. So it's nice to see they learned from their mistake with that awful setup. Like, I still love the movies. Don't everybody jump on me at once and try to like, No, I watched them. I own them. They were good movies, but they had so many better plans originally, and none of them came about. I don't know if like Finn was supposed to be a Jedi, but that would have been kind of interesting to see that evolve. Not saying he had to be a Jedi, but maybe he, I don't know, learned to fight with lightsabers, but wasn't a Jedi. I don't know. There's like any number of things where they could have done. So it's nice to see they have plans for all the TV shows, Mandalorian and then Ahsoka. Like they all have start and end points. This isn't just season 22, like Travis said. the Mandalorian's in retirement at the old people home. Like, it's not the plan right now. So it's nice to see.
Well, and it is a good moment to maybe put the big giant disclaimer on everything. What you're listening to is a podcast about Star Wars and three random guys that are Star Wars fans. We have our opinions on what was good and what was bad and what we liked and what we didn't like. However, at the end of the day, we are unified in the fact that we love Star Wars. And we think that more Star Wars is more better. And so if you're a huge fan of the sequel trilogy and Rey and Kylo and that whole storytelling, that's great. It wasn't my personal favorite, but there's nothing wrong with it, so to speak. I can get nitpicky about my preferences and opinions, but just know that all three of us, we love Star Wars. And so, in fact, if you want to come at us in the comments, do it. We have a Facebook page. It's great for that. We have a Twitter page. It's great for that. Give us your opinions. But no, yeah, I agree, Eric. I think having a good plan on some of this stuff has been fantastic. And I think we can all agree that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau have been doing just amazing work, doing the Lord's work with Star Wars over here.
Well, they saved it.
Yeah, they saved it. And they must have a really big backpack because they are carrying the franchise right now. And it's my favorite piece of Star Wars. All movies, all television shows, everything is the Mandalorian storyline, even with the good and the bad about it. That's my favorite Star Wars out there. And yeah, it's been interesting because unlike a lot of Star Wars stuff, you look at the sequel trilogy and it was so contentious and so controversial that it started causing fights. Like there was a real division in fans. Same as there was in 99 or 2000, whatever it was, whenever Phantom Menace dropped, where fans of the original trilogy thought it was Mickey Mouse-ish and over the top and hated it and it was miserable and Jar Jar Binks and Jar Jar Binks and Jar Jar Binks. Whereas I absolutely loved the prequel trilogy. I thought it was fantastic. And now a lot of fans have grown to kind of accept it, and everybody seems to have turned on that. What Mandalorian did that was different was it created a conversation point that wasn't contentious. It seemed that the vast majority of fans were in love with the Mandalorian and Din Djarin's story, and it's made me friends, people that I got to talk to simply because I was wearing Mandalorian merch, and they struck up a conversation. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, I'm ready for just about all of the stuff that they announced. Some of the stuff that's not even in development, I've been most excited for. Seeing Donald Glover come back for a Lando Calrissian show would be super duper. That's still
Absolutely
part of the project plan. I don't, there was no concrete date on what was happening. Kathleen Kennedy's statement on that was pretty intentionally vague of it's still planned, but not actively in production in any way, shape, or form. I don't even think they've done contract negotiations at this point to get Donald Glover in there to return as Lando. Oh, they had. I know they have been, but yeah, I don't know if they've finalized any type of contract dealing with it on how they're going to go about it. The other one that's still in, I guess, production limbo would be the way I would describe it, is the Taika Waititi film for Star Wars that he is writing himself. I'm a huge fan of all of his directing. Probably one of my favorite episodes in season 2 of, or season 1 of The Mandalorian was the episode that Taika Waititi directed. So, like I said, I'm definitely excited to see what he's working on.
Yeah, supposedly it's, in some of the reading I did, like he wants to handle his script himself, and he's so busy, it's hard for him to nail it down. But
he's doing the writing himself, which is fantastic in my opinion.
I'm glad he's not getting a trilogy. I think it'll be nice to see an outlier movie that's his. He did the most recent Thor movies, and I like them.
He's done the last 2 Thor movies.
And isn't he doing one more?
I don't know if he's doing one more. Projects. Yeah, he's done so much.
His take on Thor was interesting. I liked it, but I would not. I don't want to see that continue as Thor being that way. But no, he's a great director. I loved his movie. The last Thor movie was, I would say, probably my favorite.
Love and Thunder?
Thunder?
Right. Yeah. I think it's probably my favorite. It wasn't the best like writing, maybe, but like the action and the overall story to it was really impressive, and the way he brought Natalie Portman back and stuff. That was all kind of cool.
He's been getting a lot of attention here recently. His work with What We Do in the Shadows, Reservation Dogs, Thor: Love and Thunder, Wellington Paranormal, Jojo Rabbit. He's making a big splash and doing a lot of stuff. I know he's a favorite of some of my friends here in town, and I hope he does. I hope he continues with it. And I agree with you. Some of the movies that we got in Star Wars that were, I guess, outliers or the one-offs or the kind of standalone fare have been some of my favorites. I know they're not widely regarded as the best by a lot of fans, but I absolutely loved Rogue One. I loved Solo.
Mm-hmm. I thought you were gonna bring up the Ewok Christmas special as
the Christmas special
as one of your favorites. I guess no, the Christmas special was different. What was the weird Ewok one?
Oh, there was a lot of work that came out.
Oh, there was a movie with this like little blonde kid and Ewoks. It was weird.
But
okay.
And see, actually, the Christmas special and a lot of that kind of stuff, now that we're in an era where Star Wars is treated with such a crazy amount of attention and respect, and people are starting to realize I guess not starting to realize, people have realized what an absolute fandom Star Wars is. I mean, this is one of the biggest franchises in the world, if not the biggest franchise in the world. And I'm glad they're treating it with respect and they're doing this kind of stuff. And what's funny is if you'd talked to me, whatever, let's say 10 years ago, and told me we would be getting the amount of Star Wars content, I'd have laughed at you. Because I was like, there's no way. It ain't happening. But now, especially with, I guess my favorite part about the Star Wars stuff is the kind of crossover. Because Star Wars is doing it kind of like Marvel wanted to do it, but a little bit better. Where you don't have to have watched all of the content or read everything in order to enjoy the movie. The story's self-contained. But for those that are up to date on a lot of the Star Wars lore and content, get these exciting little moments where you recognize the characters, right? And so you look at, let's look at Book of Boba Fett. You could have watched Book of Boba Fett without any idea who Boba Fett was, without ever watching the original trilogy, and you still would have understood what the story was about. And a lot of Marvel movies don't quite pull that off, in my opinion.
Yeah, they did set it up for like a very linear storyline in that regard. I think the Star Wars one is going to try and blend some of that together because I think Dave Filoni's project is going to be bringing Ahsoka, Book of Fett, Mandalorian, and a lot of those other live-action shows that are happening around the same era as far as the Disney Plus TV shows go, and bringing it into one consolidated, like, grand finale style film. So,
well, and that actually, it kind of brings up the fact, when we sat down to record tonight, Eric was talking to me about Andy Serkis. And for those of you that don't know, Andy Serkis played Supreme
Gollum.
Leader Snoke. Huh?
Gollum.
Yeah, played Gollum. He played Supreme Leader Snoke in J.J. Abrams' The Force Awakens. And Eric was telling me, oh yeah, there was a whole thing where Andy Serkis didn't know who Mark Hamill was. And I didn't believe him at all. I was like, I'm calling bullshit on this. There's no way he had no idea who Mark Hamill was. And I misunderstood it initially. I thought he was saying more like he'd never heard the name Mark Hamill. But yeah, apparently he sat down at a dinner and didn't recognize Mark Hamill. Didn't know him from Adam. And I think that's hilarious. And we are talking about a franchise that's spanning since the first one was 77, right? Came out in 1977.
Yes.
So you're talking 46 years
But
of
Mark
Star
Hamill's
Wars.
probably more known for his voice acting. To
I
be
would say
honest, for a lot of people.
If you say Mark Hamill, they're going to go Luke Skywalker. Now,
They are, but
that being,
I think if you... A lot of people, I don't think are going to know what he looks like exactly, though. Because most of his career was behind a mic.
yeah, he did a lot of voice acting work.
Oh, he's done boatloads. It's crazy to me how much. I didn't realize how many shows he was in. even his small time characters for voice acting, and he's so good at it. I would honestly, he's a better Joker than he was a Jedi.
Absolutely.
Just throwing it out there, 100%. His character was, I think it was because early on in his career he was Luke. If he would have got it later, it would have been different a little bit. But I do think, he was a much better Joker than a Luke.
Absolutely. And I think he was an amazing Joker. And so
fantastic.
That's where you get a lot of stuff, especially with Batman. You start treating it kind of like James Bond. Everybody has their favorite James Bond. Everybody has their favorite Batman. And now we've had so many versions of the Joker and so many versions of Bruce Wayne and Batman and all this kind of work. For me, I'm always going to be a 90s animated series Batman guy. And I was real tore up whenever Kevin Conroy passed. And I actually heard a rumor that Mark Hamill stopped doing any kind of voice acting in regards to Batman whenever Kevin Conroy passed. Because he was like, oh, that's Batman. And without Batman, there's no point in being Joker.
I think Mark Hamill had announced his retirement before. I'm fairly certain he announced his retirement from voice acting for the Joker before that. I think mostly because it had ran its course. There's only so much you can do with one character over that ridiculously long time span that he was the voice of the Joker, because he did it for the animated series and the video games and the direct to DVD movies and all that fun stuff.
Let's pull it back to the Star Wars. So Skeleton Crew. Now this is one that I have not gotten a lot on, and I definitely did not realize that Jude Law was going to be in it.
I didn't know anything.
Amazing, dude. How did they hide Jude Law being in that? Because as you can tell, I don't even leave my home other than to go to work by my appearance. So I definitely am on the internet a decent amount looking up stuff, and did not see until probably the last week or two that he was even involved in a Star Wars project, let alone basically the main character. It seems like him and 4 kids. So just to give you I was going to say the synopsis real quick is Skeleton Crew follows the journey of 4 kids who make a mysterious discovery on their seemingly safe home planet, then get lost in this strange and dangerous galaxy. Finding their way home and meeting unlikely allies and enemies will be a greater adventure than they ever imagined. That sounds pretty interesting.
Absolutely.
To see.
Well, and the lineup looks fantastic. We have John Watts, David Lowery, Jake Schreier, Bryce Dallas Howard, and Lee Isaac Chung, all part of the Skeleton Crew. I didn't know anything about this show. I haven't heard anything about it. I didn't know Jude Law was doing any Star Wars stuff. I didn't know anything that was going on with this.
I'm already sold with Jude Law. I'm in.
Right?
Don't even care
Best
what it is.
sniper in a movie ever. Just saying.
Jude Law?
Yeah. He played the best sniper ever in a movie.
So about Skeleton Crew, we have a few quotes that I found interesting here. So Dave Filoni described the show as, quote, a story about a group of kids in the Star Wars galaxy who go on an adventure that is more than they can handle. Jon Favreau commented that John Watts pitches the series to him during production of Spider-Man Far From Home. Even though kids were in those movies, they weren't necessarily kids' films. And lastly, Kathleen Kennedy. That was Kathleen Kennedy's quote. Excuse me. I mixed 2 of them together. But apparently they're going for a similar vibe as the Goonies with Skeleton Crew. That's the kind of energy they want to have in the show.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Definitely want to see how Jude Law fits into it, other than he's with them. I guess he has to, the taxi driver in a sense, except he's the pilot.
Yeah.
Maybe he's definitely
not paying one of the kids anymore.
Some sort of authority figure. I don't care.
But
it's got Jude Law. I'm sold.
Yeah, sold.
Don't tell me anything else about it. I'll watch it. I'm already in.
And it's nice to see they'll probably connect it to everything else because it's the same time frame as Ahsoka and Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
So
I do like seeing some interconnected stories. I get that it's a big galaxy and I want to meet new people. Ryan and I have discussed that at length numerous times, that it's an entire galaxy of people. I would like to meet more than just 6 and then follow them around the whole time. Give me more people. That's why I was so excited about Mandalorian. I love that brought in new characters, new aspects. Excited to see what the Skeleton Crew is going to be, especially with, again, Jude Law, one of my favorite actors, being involved. I'm ready to see new characters and new stories, especially if they're interconnected.
Oh,
And they're
absolutely.
smart too, because unlike Marvel, which I don't think did, this is the only gripe I have with Marvel, is what were other people doing during people's movies? They don't always show everything. You kind of don't always have an idea, like, why didn't the Avengers show up to save us at this point during this time?
Yeah, where were the Eternals during the whole thing?
Right. So with this, you kind of get an idea, because they're all the same time frame, of what was going on with these characters. So when that movie does release, eventually tying all these shows together, you're going to know, like, well, we know now why Ahsoka didn't train Grogu, or why the Mandalorian and Boba Fett don't hang out and have beers all the time, because they're doing their own thing. Like, we're gonna get an idea of things. By the way, the only downside I could say to everything Disney did was kill his character. But I don't want to stew on that, because we talked about that at length before.
But yeah, so now, Travis, you mentioned that you had been watching Andor. That's actually one I haven't been able to watch just yet, despite trying many, many times. What was your impressions on Andor, and do you think it's going to tie in good for some of these upcoming works?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how they're going to tie it in. They did confirm a season 2. I do love the secret mission espionage aspect of it, because that's something that never really got brought up in any of the films, even especially during the Clone Wars. That's a huge aspect of, warfare, especially when you're doing like a rebel style alliance, which is when it's set in as the beginning of the rebellion. You have to have those like double agents. You have to run those covert ops. You have to run those disruption style missions. It's good to see that espionage and level in it. The acting is all fantastic. The story of Cassian Andor is absolutely fascinating to watch. I've really, really enjoyed it. It's very well put together. The story makes sense. You get to see his motivations kind of develop as the story goes along more and more, which is always good, because it always starts off, it's a personal thing. He gets on the wrong side of some people, has to go on the run, falls in with a group of people that are working to actively sabotage the Empire. His motivation, not in line with what theirs is. It's not a sense of morality or honor or duty at first as a rebel. It's solely monetary based. So moving forward, you get to see that character develop, come about, which is super, super, super interesting to watch.
But you do get to see he does have the little bit of morality here and there, like with his mom. Well, not his. It wasn't his real mom, right?
Yeah, I mean,
I can't remember.
Keeping it spoiler free for me. So
yeah, no, I definitely
not,
I will.
We don't want to ruin it for Ryan.
Just was it his mom?
Well,
no.
I mean, he's not exactly like morally bankrupt.
No, I'm just saying, like, that was
to begin with. He's just motivated by cash. Again, the almighty dollar can get you to do a whole lot of things, but you get to see that develop as something beyond like his character. So it starts off with that very generic like trope of like, well, we paid this guy, to believing more and more as it goes on. So I mean, he wasn't necessarily morally bankrupt at the beginning of just doing it as a mercenary Han Solo style figure where he's like, I'm just here for the cash.
I mean, he did believe in the cause a little bit, but it's nice to see, like, you see him kind of roller coaster a little bit with like how he acts, like, so you understand why he is the way he is when you get to the movie. He is right. completely heartless in the movie. I know you've seen Rogue One, Ryan. So like you get to see though the roller coaster of emotion this guy goes through in the series as to why he becomes what he is. Because I'll say it, when I watched Rogue One, I didn't really like his character. Like, I thought he played him really well, but to be honest with you, I wasn't a big fan. Like, just the way he did it, I was expecting more of a heroish type character. But he was a very like ruthless individual when it started, and it took her opening him up and emotions and things to kind of get it going again. So Andor to me was an important show to do after I saw it. I thought it was a horrible idea to begin with, not on board at all. Once I sat down and really watched it, it made Rogue One even better than what it was.
Well, see, and you get a lot of those interesting storytelling. There's one of my favorite narratives that is kind of a sub-story across several different sections of the media, is the story of Saw Gerrera. And for those of you that don't know, Saw Gerrera is a kind of a radicalized rebel leader that over the course of time becomes more and more, I'm going to say, okay with extreme examples of rebellion. And that's a really interesting thing when it comes to Star Wars, because ultimately the first 3 movies, all 9 movies, they were meant for children, but they cover a lot of very mature topic. And being able to portray something like the Rebellion, which originally was painted as, here's the good guys because they have the good guy lightsabers, and here's the bad guys because they have the bad guy lightsabers. Now we're starting to see that the galaxy is a very large place. There are shades of gray and extremes on both sides. And not everything is about the Jedi and the Sith and these religious orders that were in charge of everything. And I think that's really some of my favorite things about the stuff that's coming out. You look at, like the Book of Boba Fett and Mandalorian, and while they still feature Jedi, it's because that's when they get involved in the next tier of stuff going on in the galaxy, so to speak. That's when you start seeing the Jedi crop up. And then you start looking at things like Andor, where it's really the story of a guy's emotional roller coaster and how he's dealing with a tyrannical regime. And I think this kind of storytelling is absolutely fantastic.
At least a lot of like world and character building is my big thing on it. You're seeing what it's like in the nitty gritty, as opposed to just these very, I don't want to say elite, because that's not necessarily the right term, but like these very highly skilled, very particular individuals, and you're seeing more of the down and dirty. And that's always what it is with espionage. Like watching Andor and seeing everything that's going on, watching Rogue One, in hindsight, I'm like, I get it. To do the job of espionage, you kind of have to be this cold, heartless bastard. I get it. I understand now. It makes perfect sense that he behaved the way that he behaved, and super excited to see season 2, moving forward.
So with that, guys, there's a epic amount of stuff and information that the Star Wars Celebration dropped on us, and we're not going to talk about all of it. There are a few key points that I'm going to try to put out there to cover all of our fan base, so to speak. So of course we talked about The Mandalorian, we talked about Bad Batch, the finale season, we talked about Ahsoka and some of the casting decisions they made and the way the storytelling is going to be going. We talked about The Accolyte and how they're covering the High Republic era, which I'm very, very excited about. As far as the books and comics section, the big news really there is that Dark Horse revealed a Phase 3 for the High Republic comic series, which is very exciting for all of our readers. I'm super stoked to see where they take that. And bonus points, they're doing a Dark Droids crossover event with the Star Wars Celebration. Marvel announced a Dark Droids crossover event. And so for comic book readers, something to look forward to. More High Republic, new Dark Droids, bring some survival horror to the Star Wars universe. It's a lot of fun. As far as merch, for our merch junkies, we got a final trailer for Star Wars Jedi Survivor, which looks fantastic. That's a game I'm actually very excited about. We have
super hyped to play that.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is going to be the Coruscant. I know they're not going to be totally open world there, which makes sense because it's
given
so
the size
massive.
of it. Yeah.
Right, and you got like just not even just like planet wise, but the down to up, like it's just fucking huge. So that's really interesting to me. And then the 5 forms of combat now, where you're gonna have these new lightsabers that you never really saw before that I know of, like the equivalent of like the great sword that he's wielding, like the 2-handed giant lightsaber that deals uber damage, but you move really slow. That was pretty neat to see. And then seeing, I don't remember in the other trailers seeing so much of their like co-pilots, the other characters. You actually even got to see, I'm so sorry, the Night Sister, can't remember her name, but you actually like, there was a part where you got to see her fight with a weapon, not like just do the magic on the side. So I'd be curious to see if maybe there's something where she might be playable alongside him. I don't know. That'd be something kind of cool that they could do.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and Mirren was kind of a fan favorite. Am I saying that name right? Let me Google it here.
Yeah, I can't remember her name at all, and I'm trying to see it
Marin.
here.
Marin. She was kind of a fan favorite character. A lot of people fell in love with her. She had a lot of emotional depth in the game. And I'll admit it, she's one of my absolute favorites from the first game. So I'm excited to see some love go that direction. But yeah, so new trailer for Star Wars Jedi Survivor. As far as toys and other merch, Hasbro did reintroduce, or is going to reintroduce, windows and blisters to their 6-inch figure packs, which is kind of interesting. They're going with a retro style for their miniatures and their figures and stuff. Hasbro did reveal that there will be new figures for Return of the Jedi, as well as the Bad Batch, the Mandalorian, and other Star Wars that they kind of talked about at the Star Wars Celebration. If you're one of those toy collectors, something to look into. And for our board game geeks, which I know there aren't many of us, but for those of us that are out there, Funko did reveal a Star Wars Rivals expandable game system, which appears to be a combination action figure and card game.
Funko,
I haven't
like
ever played any.
the big-headed figure like Funko Pop? Is that the same Funko?
Yeah, same company, but the figures for the game are going to be significantly smaller, with portions more accustomed to an action figure.
Gotcha.
I know a lot of the characters they've announced so far are Ahsoka Tano, C-3PO, Chewbacca, Finn, General Obi-Wan Kenobi, so the Clone Wars era Obi-Wan Kenobi, Han Solo, Princess Leia Organa, Rey, Yoda, and then special series of hologram editions of the characters. I don't know much about the game. They didn't talk about a lot of the mechanics or rule systems. Oh, excuse me. There's also Boba Fett, Captain Phasma, Count Dooku, Emperor Palpatine, General Grievous, Grand Moff Tarkin, several different stormtroopers, Supreme Leader Snoke, and several different separatist droids. They're going to be all part of it. They didn't talk about much of the mechanics of the game, or if it's going to be a collector aspect. I'm not certain. It looks to me that it's going to be a collector aspect game, where you're going to have to buy like booster packs, kind of like Magic. It looks interesting, looks cool. I'm excited about it. But yeah, a little bit of board game news coming out of the Star Wars celebration, so wanted to throw that out there.
And the final announcement, bringing this all to a close, was that the Star Wars Celebration 2025 would be held in Japan.
Interesting.
So,
yeah, cool.
Final
one
announcement on that.
Thing.
Oh,
no more announcements. All right, you got to pick one thing out of this long list that we've covered. What are you most excited for? Travis, what is it?
Don't put me on the spot like this.
There's got to be one that piqued you a little bit more than the rest. Which one did you read first? The video games, the board games, the shows, the movies?
Probably Andor Season 2. Just because I like my nitty-gritty TV shows where it's down, it's dirty, it's very realistic. There's massive consequences for failure. Getting an announcement for Andor Season 2 is definitely a big deal for me. In hindsight, had I known about it beforehand, I probably would have hyped myself up for Skeleton Crew with Jude Law because I absolutely love Jude Law. But having watched Andor, I'm going to have to go Andor Season 2, hands down.
All right, Ryan.
So my knee-jerk reaction, of course, is to say Bad Batch and the big announcement of the finale. But if I'm being honest, it's Ahsoka. The Star Wars Celebration took me from not paying attention to that at all to now I'm unbelievably excited about it. Lars Mikkelsen coming in as Grand Admiral Thrawn. We have Kevin Kiner scoring it. A fantastic cast and crew, and a story that revolves around the Thrawn and the Rebels. And I can't get enough of it. Yeah, it's got to be Ahsoka. That went from 0 to hero for me. So 100%. What about you, Eric?
It's got to be the game. I've played through the original so many times now. I'm playing through it again for the umpteenth time. But just getting the mechanics down again to be even better. Try not to take any damage at all during big boss fights and things like that is challenging.
Iron Man run.
Yeah, like not through the whole game because I'm not that good to like all the jumping and everything. Like at some point I'm going to jump off the edge, so I'm taking some damage. I mean, it's an inevitable flaw I have. But yeah, the big fight scenes, I'm trying to get through them with minimal damage and stuff like that. But the second game sounds like it's going to be real open world, so we're going to get a good look at a lot of places, and a lot of that is going to be right before. I'm trying to think if it's before A New Hope or not. I can't remember, or it's during A New Hope. Anyways, it'll be nice to see where Cal was, like when Luke ends up being Luke. I'm really hoping they kind of touch him just a little bit during the story, like where he was. And then, like I said, we get to see everything. Like you saw the Jedi Academy in the clip. Now with all the Imperial stuff all over it. So not even just the fact that it's a game, but the fact I get to explore everything. I'm really hoping for a decent chunk of Coruscant. But yeah, so that would be mine.
Definitely excited for the game as well. And with that, I believe this is going to bring our Rift to a close. Find us on Twitter. Eric's going to hit us with the links for all of that.
It's going to be at CTN_podcast, at Nerdverse, crossingthenerdverse.com. That's where you can also get our merch and links to some of these videos. That's going to be your best bet for all our stuff because you can go there and you can click and you can get to anything, our merch, podcasts, videos, all that stuff. So.
Yeah, the podcast is actually where you can get the hints and clues for our Hero of the Week competitions. So be sure and be checking out the Crossing the Nerdverse podcast. You'll get a chance to be entered in to win some sweet merch, some of the coolest out there in my opinion. So definitely check us out. And just a quick reminder, we love interacting with you guys. And so all of the Star Wars stuff we talked about tonight, tell us what your favorite stuff were. What are you not excited about? Is there areas of lore that you think really needs more love? Tell us. Hit us up on Twitter. Hit us up on Facebook. And check out Crossing the Nerdverse on Spotify and effectively anywhere else you can get your podcasts.
And with that, we are crossing the Nerdverse, bringing you yet another rift in the Nerdverse. So thanks for joining us on this adventure, and we'll catch you next time.
See you guys.